My daughter-in-law had been too helpful all week, too present, too eager to serve dessert. I didn't know yet what she'd done, but I knew enough to be afraid. If your instincts screamed danger, but everyone else smiled, would you trust yourself? Subscribe. This choice saves her life. The candles flickered twice before I realized my daughter-in-law was watching me cut the cake with the focus of someone waiting for results, not celebration, results. I sat at my dining table in the Detroit brownstone I'd lived in for 38 years, the same table where my husband built memories before the factory took him, the same chairs where I'd fed Elias as a boy, watched him grow into a man, celebrated his engineering degree. Now, on my 72nd birthday, those chairs held two people I wasn't sure I knew anymore. Serafina moved around my kitchen like she owned it. German chocolate cake, my favorite, placed in front of me with a smile that looked painted on. Her perfume mixed with the frosting, vanilla-scented candles burning low, creating a sweetness that felt too thick to breathe through. "Happy birthday, Mom," Elias said, raising his wine glass. His tie was loosened, his face tired from another long week at the automotive firm. He barely looked at me when he spoke anymore. Just through me, past me, around me. Serafina cut 3 generous slices, served mine first, watched as I picked up the heavy silver fork, the one from my mother's wedding set. "I made it just for you," she said. Her voice had that high, bright quality she used when other people were watching. "Extra chocolate. Your favorite." I lifted a bite toward my mouth. That's when I saw it. A tiny amber droplet on the frosting edge. It hadn't been there when I cut the slice. My hand stopped mid-air. Serafina's eyes tracked the fork, not my face. The fork. Her knee bounced under the table. A tell I'd noticed over the past few months. She only did that when she was waiting for something. My lupus made me tired most days. The medication kept the inflammation down but left me foggy, slower than I used to be. People assumed that meant I was losing my sharpness. Serafina had been counting on that assumption for weeks now. I set the fork down. "You okay, Mom?" Elias asked, finally looking at me. "Just a little tired, sweetheart," I said. My voice came out steady, calm. I'd learned long ago that panic shows in the voice first, and I couldn't afford panic. Not yet. Serafina's smile tightened at the corners. Just a fraction, just enough for someone watching closely to catch it. The weight of that moment pressed down on my chest. Not the lupus, not my age, but the cold understanding that the person sitting across from me, the woman my son had married 5 years ago in a ceremony I'd helped pay for, wanted me dead. And she thought I was too old, too sick, too trusting to see it coming. Pause right here. What would you do? Eat it and risk everything, or confront her with no proof, comment your move. The phone call wasn't meant for me. I was just getting water from the kitchen when I heard my son's wife laugh, the kind that doesn't carry joy, only calculation. 3 weeks before that birthday dinner, I'd been moving slower than usual. The lupus had flared up again, forcing me into medical retirement from the hospital where I'd worked for 23 years. My body was giving out in small ways. Joint pain, fatigue that felt like weights tied to my ankles, brain fog that made me forget words mid-sentence. Serafina had started visiting more, bringing groceries, offering to cook, suggesting I take it easy while she handled things in my kitchen. At first, I'd been grateful. A daughter-in-law who cared, a son who'd married someone thoughtful. That afternoon, I'd been resting in my bedroom when I heard her voice downstairs on the phone. "The old woman won't last much longer anyway," she said, clear as daylight through the heating vents. "We just need to speed things up a little." I froze. "That house is worth $800,000 now," she continued. "Maybe more. Boston Edison is prime real estate. Once she's in assisted living, we sell it, split the money, and I'm finally free of this situation." I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. She laughed again. "Elias doesn't have the spine to do it. He's too attached. But I can handle it. She's already confused half the time from the medication. No one would question it." The call ended. I heard her footsteps moving through my house, like she was measuring it for sale. I stayed in that bedroom for 2 hours, didn't move, didn't cry, just thought. My husband died in a factory accident when Elias was 9 years old. One moment he was kissing me goodbye at the door, the next I was identifying his body. I'd worked double shifts at the hospital to keep us afloat, to pay for Elias's school, to make sure he had opportunities I never did. I'd sacrificed vacations, delayed retirement, poured my savings into his engineering degree at Michigan State. When he married Serafina, I'd co-signed their first home loan, welcomed her, loved her because my son loved her. Now she was on the phone with someone planning my removal like I was furniture in the way. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced through every conversation, every smile, every helpful gesture from the past 2 years. The shift had been gradual after my diagnosis. Comments about generational wealth and outdated living arrangements. Suggestions that I was too sick to manage my own home. Pressure on Elias to move me somewhere safer. I thought it was concern. It was strategy. By sunrise, I'd made 3 decisions. Document everything, tell no one, and prepare for war in the quietest way possible. I was 72 years old. My body was failing. My son was blind to his wife's nature. But I'd survived widowhood, single parenthood, decades of night shifts, and double duties. I'd built this life from nothing after my husband died protecting his family. Now my family was trying to erase me. The security camera was smaller than a lipstick tube. I hid it behind the ceramic rooster on my kitchen shelf, the one my mother gave me 50 years ago, watching eyes where Serafina thought there were none. I bought it online using a gift card so there'd be no credit card record Elias could see. Had it delivered to my neighbor Rowena's house in Chicago during one of her visits. She didn't ask questions when I told her I needed it, just hugged me and said, "You do what you need to do." Installing it took me an hour. My hands shook from the lupus medication, and the adhesive smell from the mounting tape made my head swim. But I got it positioned just right, aimed at the kitchen counter where I did most of my cooking, where Serafina had started helping with meal prep. The next step was harder. I started copying every financial document I had, bank statements showing the money I'd given Elias over the years, the co-signed home loan, the wedding expenses I'd covered, titles and deeds to the brownstone, my will, dated 2 years ago, that left everything to Elias. I made copies at the library 3 miles from my house, paid in cash, stored them in a safety deposit box at a bank Serafina didn't know about. The physical toll was immediate. My joints ached from walking to the bus stop. The stress triggered a lupus flare that left me bedridden for 2 days. I ran a low fever, felt my heart race at night, couldn't keep food down. Serafina visited during that flare, brought soup, fluffed my pillows, asked if I needed anything. I watched her through half-closed eyes and wondered if she was disappointed I was still breathing. Elias called twice but didn't visit. Too busy with a project deadline. I didn't push. Part of me was testing him, seeing if he'd choose to check on his mother or trust his wife's updates. He chose wrong. The camera captured everything for 5 days straight. Serafina entering my kitchen when she thought I was napping, opening cabinets, studying my spice rack, taking photos of my medication bottles, writing notes in a small journal she kept in her purse. She was researching, planning, documenting my routines. I saved every clip to an encrypted folder on a thumb drive, made 3 copies, hid them in 3 different locations, one in my bedroom, one in Rowena's house, one in my safety deposit box. The fear was constant. Some nights I couldn't sleep, listening to every sound in the house, wondering if she'd given Elias a key I didn't know about, wondering if I'd wake up to find her standing over my bed. But fear is useful when you're planning survival. It keeps you sharp. 2 days before my birthday, I watched her enter my kitchen when she thought I was napping. She opened my spice cabinet and studied the contents like a student cramming for finals. Then she smiled. Screenshot that smile in your mind. Villains always reveal themselves when they think no one's watching. Have you caught someone like this? The cake she baked on Tuesday wasn't for practice. It was a dress rehearsal. I know because I tasted it after she left, just a crumb from the disposal, and my tongue went numb for 6 hours. She'd shown up unannounced that morning, said she wanted to test a new recipe for my birthday, use my kitchen, my ingredients, my oven. I stayed in the living room, pretending to watch television while the camera recorded every move. She worked fast, confident. Mixed the batter, added something from a small amber vial she pulled from her purse, stirred carefully, poured it into the pan. The whole time she hummed, like she was baking cookies for a church sale. After she left, I went straight to the garbage, found the paper towel she'd used to wipe the vial. It smelled bitter, medicinal, wrong. I knew I shouldn't, knew it was dangerous, but I needed to understand what I was dealing with. I touched my finger to a crumb that had fallen on the counter, brought it to my tongue, just the tiniest taste. The numbness started within minutes, spread from my tongue to my throat to my chest. My heart rate spiked. I felt dizzy, disoriented, like the room was tilting sideways. I called my doctor, the one I'd known for 15 years, the one who'd walked me through my lupus diagnosis, told her I'd accidentally ingested something and needed to come in immediately. She saw me within the hour. "What did you take?" she asked, checking my vitals, shining a light in my eyes. "I don't know exactly," I said, "but I need you to run a toxicology panel, full screen, everything." She looked at me for a long moment. "Josephine, are you in danger?" "I need the results first," I said. "Then I'll explain." The blood draw felt like confirmation. Like I was admitting this was real, that my son's wife was actually trying to kill me. The waiting period felt eternal. 3 days of checking my phone every hour, jumping at every notification, wondering if the lab would find what I feared they would find. During those 3 days, I couldn't tell anyone. Not Elias. He'd never believe me without proof. Not my friends. They'd think the lupus medication was making me paranoid. Not even Rowena yet. I needed evidence before I involved anyone else. The isolation was crushing. I was living in my own home, terrified of the woman who had a key to my door, waiting for lab results that would either confirm my worst fear or prove I was losing my mind. Some nights, I wondered if I was wrong, if the stress and illness were making me see danger where there was only kindness. If I was becoming the confused old woman Serafina had described on the phone. But then I'd watch the camera footage again, see her smile as she added that amber liquid to the cake, see the calculation in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. The lab called on Thursday. The technician's voice dropped when she read the results. Oleander extract. Enough to stop a heart. She asked if I wanted to file a police report. I said, "Not yet." "Would you have called police immediately or finished gathering proof? One choice gives you justice. The other just gives you headlines. Which did you choose in your mind?" The notary's pen scratched across paper for 47 minutes. Each signature erased a piece of the future my daughter-in-law had planned without permission. 1 week before my birthday, I called Rowena in Chicago. Told her everything. The overheard conversation, the camera footage, the poison test cake, the lab results confirming oleander extract. She didn't doubt me for a second. "Come to Chicago," she said. "Tomorrow, we're fixing this right now." Rowena had been my friend since high school, became a civil rights attorney, built a career defending people the system tried to erase. When I told her what Serafina was planning, she shifted into the mode I'd seen her use in courtrooms. Precise, strategic, unstoppable. We sat in her mahogany-paneled office overlooking Lake Michigan. She pulled out paperwork she'd already prepared because that's who Rowena was. Always 3 steps ahead. "We're transferring the brownstone into a family trust," she said. "Irrevocable. If anything suspicious happens to you, anything at all, Elias gets nothing. The trust dissolves and everything goes to a scholarship fund." "A scholarship fund?" I asked. "For children who lost parents young," Rowena said. like Elias did when he was 9, like the kids who need someone to believe in them the way you believed in your son. The weight of that hit me hard. I was protecting my legacy by making sure it helped the kind of child Elias had been. Before he became the man who chose comfort over protecting his mother, we spent the afternoon drafting documents, trust structure, beneficiary designations, automatic triggers if I died under questionable circumstances, legal language that would prevent Serafina from touching a single dollar of my estate, regardless of what happened. "What about Elias?" I asked. Rowena looked at me with the kind of honesty only old friends can deliver. "If he cared enough to protect you, we wouldn't be sitting here. This trust makes sure your death doesn't benefit the people planning it." The words hurt because they were true. I signed 14 pages. Each signature felt like closing a door on the family I'd thought I had and opening a window to the future I'd choose for myself. The cost wasn't just emotional. It was admitting that the son I'd raised, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for, had failed me in the most fundamental way. He'd chosen his wife's approval over his mother's safety, chosen his comfort over my survival. The notary stamped the final page. It was done. The brownstone was protected. My assets were secured. Serafina's entire plan had been built on property she could never access. Rowena looked at me across her desk and asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you think she'll actually try it?" I answered with the only word I had left. "Yes." Detective Sofia Navarro didn't laugh when I showed her the footage. She didn't doubt. She just asked, "When is your birthday?" and started taking notes. The Detroit Police Department's Elder Abuse Unit occupied a corner of the 3rd floor. Small office, 2 desks, files stacked everywhere. Navarro was the only detective assigned full-time, which told me everything about how seriously the city took crimes against people like me. But Navarro took it seriously. She was maybe 45, dark hair pulled back tight, eyes that had seen too much but hadn't gone cold yet. When I walked in carrying my thumb drive and lab results, she didn't make me wait. Didn't treat me like a confused old woman wasting her time. She watched the kitchen footage 3 times, once at normal speed, twice slowed down to catch every detail. Serafina's hand reaching for the amber vial, the careful pour into the cake batter, that smile. "Oleander," Navarro said, reading the lab report. "Smart choice for someone targeting a lupus patient. Symptoms mimic cardiac failure. Easy to miss if the doctors aren't looking for it." "You've seen this before," I said. "Variations of it." She leaned back in her chair. "Financial exploitation of the elderly is my specialty. Usually it's more subtle. Forged signatures, power of attorney abuse, slow drains on bank accounts. Attempted murder is rarer, but it happens, especially when there's significant property involved." She asked about the brownstone, about Elias and Serafina's financial situation, about the timeline of behavior changes. I answered everything, watching her write in shorthand I couldn't read. "Here's what we're looking at," she said finally. "We could arrest her now on attempted murder charges. The footage and lab work are solid. But if you're willing, I'd recommend we wait until your birthday dinner. Let her actually poison the cake. Get her confession on record when she thinks you're dying." My hands tightened on my purse. "You want to use me as bait. I want to build a case so strong she can't plea down to elder abuse with probation. I want attempted murder that sticks, 1st degree, premeditated, the kind that puts her away for 15 years minimum." Navarro's voice was steady, professional. "But only if you're comfortable with the risk. You'd be wearing a wire. I'd be 3 blocks away with backup. You text 1 word, now, and we're through your door in under 2 minutes. I thought about my husband, about the risks he took every day at that factory to provide for us, about the risk I'd taken raising a child alone after he died. "I'll do it," I said. Navarro pulled a small recording device from her desk drawer. "This goes under your clothing, button activated. If she confesses while you're supposedly dying, we have her on tape admitting to attempted murder." She handed me her business card with a direct number written on the back. "Call me when it's over," she said. or if you change your mind. Either way, you're not alone in this anymore. As I left the station, Navarro handed me the recording device. "Wear it to dinner," she said. "Let her confess, thinking you're dying." Some people can't help but gloat. If you were the detective, would you have advised the same strategy? The risk is enormous. The reward is justice. Which matters more? I baked my cake at 4 in the morning while the street outside was still dark. Same recipe, same frosting, same candles. The only difference, mine wouldn't kill me. Sleep hadn't come the night before my birthday. I'd laid in bed counting hours, running through the plan, checking for gaps. At 3:30, I gave up and went downstairs to my kitchen. The recipe was my mother's, German chocolate cake. I'd made it 100 times over the years, for Elias's birthdays when he was young, for church potlucks, for holidays. My hands knew the measurements without thinking. Flour, sugar, cocoa powder, eggs. But my hands were shaking anyway. The lupus medication made my joints ache in the cold pre-dawn. The flour dust caught in my throat. I had to stop twice to catch my breath, to remind myself why I was doing this, because Serafina thought I was helpless, because Elias thought I was fragile, because everyone assumed that being 72 and sick meant I was already half gone. I mixed the batter slowly, carefully, added the chocolate. The vanilla extract smell was strong enough to cover the fierce sweat on my skin. I poured it into the pan and slid it into the oven. While it baked, I sat at my kitchen table and watched the camera feed on my phone. The ceramic rooster on the shelf stared back at me through the lens, watching, waiting. The cake came out perfect. Golden brown edges, soft center. I let it cool while I made the frosting. Coconut, pecans. The way my mother taught me. By 6 a.m., it was finished. I hid it in the mini fridge in my bedroom behind old photo albums and Christmas decorations. Serafina arrived at noon. "Happy birthday," she called from the front door, carrying grocery bags. "I brought everything we need for tonight. Let me handle the cooking. You just relax." I smiled, thanked her. Went to sit in the living room while she took over my kitchen. The camera captured everything. Her pulling ingredients from the bags, her checking the spice cabinet again, running her finger along the labels, then her hand going into her purse, the amber vial, the careful pour into the cake batter she was mixing. She hummed while she worked, some pop song I didn't recognize. Happy, confident, like she was baking cookies for a school fundraiser. I counted the seconds. Waited for her to put the cake in the oven. Waited for her to call out, "Gonna freshen up before Elias gets here." Waited for her footsteps on the stairs. Then I moved. My bedroom was directly above the kitchen. I grabbed my safe cake from the mini fridge, carried it downstairs, switched it with the one cooling on my counter, took her poisoned cake back upstairs, hid it in the mini fridge where mine had been. The whole switch took 90 seconds. I was back in the living room when she came downstairs, makeup refreshed, smile in place. "Cake's almost ready," she said. "This is going to be such a special night." "I'm sure it will be," I said. I activated the recording device under my cardigan, felt its small weight against my ribs. Navarro was 3 blocks away, waiting for my signal. The dinner began at 7. By 7:30, 3 people sat around my table. 1 hunter, 1 prey who'd become the hunter, and 1 son who had no idea his world was about to shatter. Elias raised his glass and said words I'd waited 72 years to hear. "To the strongest woman I know." Serafina smiled. I smiled. Only one of us meant it. The dinner conversation flowed like we were a normal family. Elias talked about his project at work, some new automotive design I didn't fully understand but nodded along to anyway. Serafina complimented the pot roast I'd made, asked about my lupus treatment, seemed genuinely concerned about my health. It was a masterclass in performance. We were all acting. "Time for cake," Serafina announced, standing to clear the dinner plates. She moved with purpose, bringing out the German chocolate cake, my cake, the safe one, and setting it in front of me with ceremony. The candles were already lit. 72 of them, crowded together on top. "Make a wish, Mom," Elias said. I closed my eyes, wished for justice, blew out the candles in 3 breaths. Serafina cut 3 generous slices, served mine first, watching as I picked up my fork. Her eyes tracked my hand, not my face, always the fork. I took a deliberate, slow bite, let the chocolate melt on my tongue, took another. The cake was good. I'd made it well. But every bite felt like swallowing stones. Serafina ate her slice eagerly, relaxed now, confident. She thought the poison was working its way through my system, thought she just had to wait for the symptoms to start. I knew the timeline from my research. Oleander typically takes 20 to 30 minutes to show cardiac effects. She'd be watching for chest pain, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat. I planned to give her a show. Elias talked about a vacation he and Serafina were planning, somewhere tropical. I half listened, tracking time in my head. 15 minutes, 18, 20. At 22 minutes, I let my hand tremble slightly, pressed my palm to my chest, took a deeper breath. Serafina's knee started bouncing under the table. "You okay, Mom?" Elias asked. His phone was face down on the table. Rare for him. Maybe he'd actually decided to be present for once. "Just a little tired," I said. My voice came out thinner than normal, not acting, just the weight of what was about to happen. At 25 minutes, I let the fork slip from my hand. It clattered against the plate loud in the quiet room. Both of them looked at me. "Mom?" Elias's voice carried real concern now. I clutched my chest, let my breathing go shallow and fast, felt my heart actually racing, not from poison, from fear and rage and the terrible knowledge that I was about to destroy my son's world. "I can't," I gasped, let my eyes go wide. "Can't breathe." Elias stood up fast, chair scraping back. "I'm calling 911. "Wait." One word, one hand raised. The room went silent in a way silence never had before. I sat up, spine straight, eyes clear. The trembling stopped. The gasping stopped. I looked directly at Serafina and watched the color drain from her face. Elias stood frozen, phone in hand, confusion written across every feature. I pulled out my phone without explanation, connected it to the dining room TV via the casting function Elias had set up for me last Christmas. The kitchen footage filled the screen. Timestamp visible. Yesterday, 2:47 p.m. Serafina entering frame, opening her purse, pulling out the amber vial, adding it to the cake batter, stirring carefully, smiling. The audio was crystal clear. She was humming. 20 minutes in, I clutched my chest, gasped, let the fork clatter, collapsed forward against the mahogany table my husband built 40 years ago. Elias screamed. Serafina inhaled sharply, and I watched her eyes through my half-closed lids. She wasn't afraid. She was waiting. The Oscar goes to survival instinct. Could you fake your own crisis to expose a killer? Be honest in the comments. I held up one hand, stopped my son's 911 call with a single word, "Wait." Then I sat up, spine straight, eyes clear. The room went silent in a way that silence never had before. Elias stared at me like I'd come back from the dead. In a way, I had. Serafina's face went through 5 expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, panic, calculation, denial. She was searching for an exit that didn't exist. "Mom, what is this?" Elias's voice cracked. "What are we watching?" "Your wife," I said. My voice was steady now, strong, trying to murder me. For my house. On screen, Serafina stirred the poison batter with that cold, calculating smile. The timestamp was clear. The actions were clear. There was no way to misinterpret what we were watching. "That's not," Serafina started. "You're sick. You're confused." "The lab tested it," I said. I pulled the report from my cardigan pocket and placed it on the table. Oleander extract mimics heart failure in lupus patients. You researched it well. Elias picked up the lab report with shaking hands. Read it again." looked at his wife. Serafina. His voice was barely above a whisper. Tell me this isn't real. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I watched her brain working, trying to find the story that would save her. She's setting me up, Serafina said finally. She never liked me. She's been trying to get between us since we got married. I have phone records, I said. I pulled out another document. Your calls to real estate agents asking about property values in Boston Edison. Your searches on your laptop for oleander toxicity and undetectable poisons and inheritance timelines. The private investigator I hired documented everything. Elias was reading the documents now. Shock, cycling to denial, cycling to anger. His face kept changing colors, red to white to red again. I also have, I continued, emails between you and Elias about moving me into assisted living, about how you needed the money from selling this house, about how I was becoming too much of a burden. That's taken out of context, Serafina tried. There's a recording, I said. I played the audio on my phone, her voice 3 weeks ago laughing on the phone. The old woman won't last much longer anyway. We just need to speed things up a little. The room went silent. Elias sat down heavily, put his head in his hands. Serafina looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Pure hatred. The mask was off. The performance was over. You had no right, she said. Her voice was low, shaking. That house is worth a fortune. You're dying anyway. I'm 72 with lupus, I said. Not dying. There's a difference. You're selfish, she spat. Hoarding wealth while your son struggles. My son has an engineering degree I paid for, a house I co-signed, a wedding I financed. My voice was cold now, hard. You have debt from a lifestyle you can't afford. There's a difference. Elias looked up at me. His eyes were red. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. That's not the same as not knowing. Serafina tried tears next, let them roll down her face, reached for Elias's hand. He pulled away. Save them for your lawyer, I said. This is insane, Serafina said, standing. I'm leaving. You'll leave in handcuffs, I said, or not at all. But I wasn't finished. The footage was just the opening argument. The real evidence was what I'd done 3 days ago, something Serafina couldn't see coming because she'd underestimated an old woman's will to live. What punishment fits this crime? Life in prison, public exposure, total loss? Vote in comments. Justice, mercy, or revenge? I pulled the manila folder from beneath my placemat. Each document inside represented a door closing on the future she'd built on my grave. I have more, I said. I spread the documents across the table like dealing cards, each one a death blow to Serafina's plan, lab report, official letterhead, technical language about toxicity levels and cardiac effects, the doctor's signature at the bottom validating everything, private investigator's report, screenshots of Serafina's internet search history, oleander plant where to buy, symptoms of heart attack versus poisoning, how long does oleander stay in system, all time-stamped, all saved, phone records, calls to 3 different real estate agents over the past 2 months, duration of calls, follow-up emails asking about property values, market conditions, fastest sale timelines, financial analysis, their credit card debt laid out in numbers that didn't lie, $47,000, minimum payments they could barely afford, the brownstone worth $800,000. The math was simple and damning. Detective Navarro's business card. I placed it in the center of the table. I filed a report 2 days ago, I said. Attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud. The detective is waiting for my call. Elias's denial crumbled like wet paper. He looked at each document, back at his wife, back at the documents. Serafina. His voice broke. Is any of this not true? Any of it? She tried blame first. You told me you were getting promoted. You said we'd have the money. I never said that, Elias whispered. You said your mother would understand. Understand what? His voice was rising now. Understand you poisoning her? She tried victim next, tears flowing. I was desperate. We're drowning in debt. I just wanted a future for us. By killing my mother? The truth of it hit him finally, fully. His wife had tried to murder his mother for money. His wife was a killer. Serafina's face changed. The tears stopped. The mask shattered completely. She's old, she said, cold, practical. She's sick. She has no right to hoard wealth while we suffer. That house should be ours. It's not, I said. I pulled out the last document. The trust paperwork, notarized, legal, binding. I transferred the deed last month, I said. Serafina's face went from pale to gray. Family trust. If anything suspicious happens to me, Elias gets nothing. And you, sweetheart, were never getting anything regardless. The silence was complete. Elias read the trust document. His inheritance gone. His future changed. All because he'd chosen his wife over his mother. Chosen comfort over vigilance. Chosen to look away when looking might have been hard. Serafina was doing her own math now. Marriage destroyed. Freedom gone. Future erased. All for a house she could never access. All because she'd underestimated an old woman who'd survived worse than her. $800,000, I said softly. You destroyed everything for money you were never going to get. Then I told them the part that would hurt most. Not the police. Not the prison time. The part about the house they'd killed for and how they'd never see a single dollar. I transferred the deed last month, I said. Serafina's face went from pale to gray. Family trust. If anything suspicious happens to me, Elias gets nothing. And you, sweetheart, were never getting anything regardless. The words landed like stones in water, ripples of understanding spreading across both their faces. What? Elias's voice was barely audible. I pulled out the trust documents, 13 pages, every page notarized, every clause ironclad. My friend Rowena, you remember her, the attorney from Chicago, she helped me set this up 3 weeks ago. The brownstone goes into an irrevocable family trust. If I die under any suspicious circumstances, the trust dissolves immediately. Everything goes to a scholarship fund for children who lost parents young. Like you, I said to Elias. Like you were when your father died and I had to figure out how to keep us alive. Elias was crying now, silent tears running down his face. The trust has specific triggers, I continued. Any investigation into my death, any questions about my care or safety, any suggestion that someone benefited from my passing. If any of those happen, you're permanently disqualified from inheritance. I looked at Serafina. Her brain was working fast, trying to find the loophole. There isn't one, I said. Rowena made sure. Even if I die naturally tomorrow, the trust reviews every circumstance. And right now, with attempted murder charges pending against your wife, Elias is already disqualified. Permanently. $800,000, I said softly. That's what this house is worth. That's what you were willing to kill me for, and you can't touch a penny of it. Serafina's final calculation was written on her face. Marriage destroyed, freedom gone, future erased, all for property she could never access. You researched oleander toxicity, I said. You researched inheritance timelines. You researched how to make a heart attack look natural. But you never researched who actually owned this house. You assumed. You assumed an old sick woman would be helpless, would be easy, would be yours to erase. Elias looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not love, not gratitude. Just raw recognition of who I actually was beneath the mother he'd taken for granted. I protected this house the way your father would have wanted, I said, by making sure it helps people who need help, by making sure greedy people can't profit from death, by making sure his memory means something beyond just dollars. Serafina opened her mouth to speak. That's when we heard the sirens. I'd called Detective Navarro before serving dessert. She'd been waiting 3 blocks away for my signal, a single text that said, "Now." The sound got louder, closer, stopped right outside my front door. Serafina looked at the door, looked at me, looked back at the door. She'd run out of exits. The house was never the prize. Dignity was. Survival was. Have you ever protected something by appearing to give it up? That's mastery. Detective Navarro entered through my front door with 2 uniformed officers. Serafina looked at the door, then at me, then back at the door. She'd run out of exits. Serafina Laurent? Navarro's voice was professional, calm. You're under arrest for attempted murder, elder abuse, and fraud. One of the officers stepped forward with handcuffs, started reading Serafina her rights, the words I'd heard 1,000 times on television but never thought I'd hear in my own dining room. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Elias sat frozen, didn't move, didn't speak, didn't defend his wife. Navarro directed the other officer to search Serafina's purse. He pulled out the amber vial, held it up to the light, still half full, enough to kill 3 more people. Is this yours? The officer asked. Serafina's mouth opened, closed. She was calculating whether lying would help, whether crying would help, whether anything would help. I want a lawyer, she said finally. Smart, Navarro said. She turned to me. Mrs. Washington, can you show Officer Tran where you secured the poison cake? I led them upstairs to my bedroom, pulled the cake from the mini fridge, still wrapped in plastic, still preserved as perfect evidence. The officer photographed it from every angle, labeled it, bagged it. Chain of custody documented on forms I'd never seen before. Navarro retrieved the recording device from my cardigan. This captured everything, she said quietly to me. Her confession, her threats, her complete breakdown when confronted. It's more than enough. Downstairs, they put the handcuffs on Serafina. The click of metal was loud in my quiet house. Ma'am, you need to come with us, the officer said. Serafina looked at Elias one last time, waiting for him to object, to defend her, to choose her. He looked away. They walked her through my front door, down the steps of my brownstone, past neighbors who'd come outside to watch, past Mrs. Henderson from next door, who'd brought me soup when I was sick, past the Johnsons who'd known my husband. A local news van was parked across the street, camera already recording. Navarro had tipped them. She wanted this public, wanted other families to see that elder abuse has consequences. They loaded Serafina into the patrol car. She turned back to me one last time and screamed, "You destroyed your own family." I responded with the truth that would follow her to prison. No, I chose myself over your greed. There's a difference. The car door closed. The sirens started again. Red and blue lights reflected off my windows as they drove away. Elias stood in my doorway. The man who'd let this happen. The son who'd chosen convenience over vigilance. If this sounds familiar, don't wait for the birthday dinner. Subscribe. I'll flag the danger before the damage is done. Elias stood in my doorway for 40 minutes after they took her away. He didn't ask permission to enter. He didn't apologize. He just stood there, trying to find words that didn't exist. Detective Navarro had left. The neighbors had gone back inside. The news van had driven away. Now it was just us, mother and son, the silence heavy with everything we'd never said. I didn't know, he said finally. Mom, I swear I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. That's not the same as not knowing. He flinched like I'd hit him. She said things, he continued, about you being forgetful, about you needing more help, about how hard it was to maintain this big house. I thought she was being caring. You thought it was easier to believe her than to check on me yourself. The truth of it hung between us. All the visits he'd skipped, all the phone calls he'd cut short, All the times I'd tried to tell him something was wrong and he'd dismissed it as my medication, my age, my illness. I was working so much, he said, weak, desperate. The project deadlines. Your father worked every day of his adult life, I said. Double shifts, dangerous work. He still came home and asked how I was, really asked, not just waiting for his turn to talk. Elias's face crumbled. What do I do now? You learn to live with what your weakness almost cost. He sank into the chair by my door, put his head in his hands. I didn't go to him, didn't offer comfort. Some lessons need the full weight of consequence. She talked about the house a lot, he said quietly, about how much it was worth, about what we could do with that money. I told her it was your house, that you'd earned it, but I never thought... You never thought she'd try to speed up my death, but you knew she wanted me gone. You knew she saw me as an obstacle to your future. You just didn't want to deal with it. I love you, Mom. Love isn't just words, Elias. It's showing up. It's asking questions. It's choosing to see what's uncomfortable instead of what's convenient. The maternal part of me wanted to forgive him, wanted to pull him close and tell him it would be okay. But the part of me that had almost died because of his neglect couldn't do it. Not yet. Your wife tried to murder me, I said. The words still felt foreign in my mouth, and you made it easy for her by not being present, by not being vigilant, by choosing your comfort over my safety. I'm sorry. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't unpoison the cake, I said. Sorry doesn't give me back the weeks I spent terrified in my own home. Sorry doesn't change the fact that I had to protect myself from my own family. He asked if I'd ever forgive him. I gave him the only answer I had. I raised you better than this, but I won't let your weakness kill me. Whether you become the man I thought I raised, that's your choice now, not mine. I left him sitting in my doorway. Walked upstairs to my bedroom, closed the door. I'm alive. That's all he gets today. The brownstone felt different the morning after. Lighter. Like removing a person can sometimes remove a weight you didn't know you were carrying. 1 week after the arrest, I woke up without fear for the first time in months. No listening for footsteps, no wondering if today was the day. Just quiet morning light through my bedroom window. I started small. Removed everything Serafina had touched. The decorative pillows she'd bought for my couch, the serving dishes she'd given me for Christmas, the picture frame with her and Elias that had sat on my mantel. All of it went into boxes for donation. Elias's old room became my art studio. I'd always wanted to paint but never had time. Now I had time. I had peace. I had space that was mine again. Rowena visited from Chicago. We sat in my kitchen drinking coffee, laughing about things that had nothing to do with attempted murder or betrayal. Just old friends catching up on life. You did it, she said. You survived. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. My first lupus treatment appointment after the arrest was different. No anxiety. No wondering if I'd make it to the next one. The doctor noticed immediately. Your stress markers are down, she said, reviewing my blood work. Significantly. Whatever changes you made, keep making them. I chose myself, I said simply. The neighborhood rallied. Mrs. Henderson brought casseroles. The Johnsons offered to help with yard work. People I'd known for decades but had distanced myself from during the crisis came back into my life. Local news ran a story. Detroit woman exposes daughter-in-law's murder plot. I became the face of elder abuse awareness in the city. Elder Services called, asking if I'd speak at community events. I said yes. The scholarship fund received its first applications. Reading them broke my heart and healed it at the same time. Kids who'd lost parents. Kids who needed someone to believe in them the way I'd believed in Elias before he forgot how to see me. Elias texted occasionally. How are you? Thinking of you. In therapy. I responded briefly. Fine. Thank you. Good. Rowena told me he'd moved to a smaller apartment. that Serafina's lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal, that he was trying to rebuild his career after the scandal. I didn't ask for details. His path was his own now. 3 weeks after the arrest, I received a letter. Prison envelope. Serafina's handwriting. I held it over the kitchen trash can for a full minute, deciding whether closure was worth reopening the wound. I opened it. 5 pages, single-spaced, explaining everything: her childhood, her struggles, her fear of poverty, her resentment of my wealth, her justification for viewing my death as a solution rather than a tragedy. Not one word of apology, just explanation. I read it twice, then I put it in my fireplace, watched it burn. Some people apologize, others just explain. Serafina was an explainer. Would you have opened that letter? Closure sometimes costs more than curiosity is worth. What would you need to hear to consider it resolved? 6 months later, I stood in front of 43 people at the Detroit Community Center and told them the truth. I almost let politeness kill me. I almost chose peace over survival. Don't make my mistake. The room was packed. Seniors, adult children, social workers, people who'd heard my story and wanted to learn how to protect themselves or their loved ones. Detective Navarro stood beside me, co-presenting. We'd become friends over the past months. She taught me that survival wasn't just about documenting abuse. It was about believing you deserved protection. Install cameras, I said. Not because you don't trust people, but because trust shouldn't cost your life. Document everything. Keep copies somewhere safe. Build a legal fortress around your assets before you need one. A woman in the 3rd row raised her hand. Did you ever think you were overreacting? Every single day, I said. That's what they count on. Your doubt, your guilt, your desire to keep the peace. But peace with someone who wants you dead isn't peace. It's surrender. Navarro talked about warning signs, financial pressure combined with increased interest in your health, isolation from friends and family, offers to help that feel like control, questions about your will that come too frequently. During the question period, a young woman stood up. "Your story saved my grandmother," she said. Her voice shook. She saw you on the news, started asking questions about her daughter-in-law's behavior, found out she'd been slowly draining her bank account. Thank you. I had to pause before responding, had to swallow the emotion. That's why I'm here, I said. So no one else has to fight this battle alone. At the end of the session, we announced the scholarship fund's first recipient, a 14-year-old girl who'd lost her mother to cancer. Bright, determined, exactly the kind of kid who deserved a chance. Elias was in the back of the room. I'd seen him come in late, trying not to be noticed. He didn't approach, just watched, waited. When everyone else left, he stayed. "Can I talk to you?" he asked. 5 minutes, I said. He told me about his progress. Therapy twice a week. Divorce finalized. New job with better boundaries. He'd been visiting his father's grave monthly, talking to him, apologizing. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "I'm just asking for the chance to show you over time that I'm becoming someone better." "Show me through time, not words," I said. He nodded. Started to leave. "Elias," I called. He turned. "I don't regret surviving, but I regret that I had to protect myself from you. That's the part that still hurts." "I know," he said quietly. "That's the part I'm trying to fix." Stories like this happen every day behind closed doors. You now have the playbook. Subscribe so the next person who needs this finds it before their birthday dinner. If you won't, tell me why in the comments. I read every single reason. I walked out of that community center into October sunshine that felt warm despite the season. Elias walked beside me, 3 steps back, the distance of respect, not rejection. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The brownstone waited for me 3 miles away, paid for, protected, mine. I'd chosen myself, my dignity, my truth over the family that tried to erase me. And in choosing myself, I'd become the woman I needed when I was young, unshakable, strategic, and free. Drop the one line from this story you'll carry with you, the one that changed how you see protection, family, or survival. I want to know what landed for you.